Welcome to the DJ Football Fantasy Podcast with your host, DJ Football.
All right. Let's get it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm DJ Football, and today we are going to talk about off-season moves of the AFC South. So last episode we did AFC North moves, which is the Ravens, Bengals, Browns, and Steelers. Today, we're going to do the AFC South, which is the Texans, Colts, Titans, and Jaguars. And then our next episode is going to cover the NFL draft and the moves that were made there by the different teams. And then we'll jump into some AFC East off-season action as well. So I might mention some moves that happened during the draft, just because they'll be pertinent to the discussion of the transitions that some of these teams made, but we'll get more in depth in the next episode. All right, well let's jump right in. So we've got some. We're gonna jump right into the Texans and some AFC South action. All right, so Texans made a move. Not as many as a lot of the other teams so far, but the Texans went and got Marlon Mack from the Colts. Now, Marlon Mack, he's 26 years old. He signed a one-year deal with the team, kind of a prove-it deal. And what happened was when he was on the Colts, he was actually getting worked into the offense pretty effectively, and then he tore his Achilles. And so with that kind of an injury, running backs just in the past haven't been able to recover. We've yet to see a running back come back from an Achilles tear and dominate and be one of like a really good fantasy option. And so it'd be really nice if Marlon Mack could do that. But I think the team is just as wary of Marlon Mack as all the other fantasy players. And so they signed him on a one-year deal and said, hey, if you're really that great still, come in here, show us what you got for a year, and then we'll give you a bigger contract. So it'd be wonderful if he could come in and make an impact. We'll see. So we'll hope for the best. They also re-signed Brandon Cooks, who was their one and only fantasy option on the team last year, and at this point still is. So Brandon Cooks, pretty great wide receiver. He has been his entire career. Consistent 1,000-yard games. Pretty great during fantasy too. He's earning you anywhere from 10 to 20 points every week. But teams just don't seem to want him. They just keep trading him. He's been on so many different teams throughout his career. This is one of the few years where a team has re-signed him. So he's under contract for the next 2 years on a $39.6 million deal with $36 million of that guaranteed. Almost all of the money. So only $3 million of that contract is not guaranteed money. So they want him, they paid him, and that's great. I'm excited for Brandon Cooks. I'm glad he got paid. And I believe he'll have fantasy value this year. He's there to soak up the targets. No one else really is gonna impede that movement forward unless we see the Texans make a big move somewhere else. So let's see. They did make some offensive line signings to give, at this point, Davis Mills some more protection, but they're pretty mediocre moves. I think you had Justin Britt, who was moved there to play at center, and he's pretty good. But other than that, they weren't fantastic linemen that they picked up. And then, of course, the big news is they traded away Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson didn't want to play for them. Didn't play all year, under contract all year last year, but never touched the field. They fixed that problem. They traded him to the Browns and got a haul of draft picks for him. So I think we talked about that last episode for the Browns. So if you missed that and you want to hear more about what happened with Deshaun Watson, watch the last episode or listen to that. You'll get more information there. All right, that's pretty much it for the Texans. I think we're in for another mediocre season from them. Hopefully 4 or 5 wins is my guess. And fantasy value is going to be hard to come by. I think Brandon Cooks you can count on as a good, probably a back end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. So if you pick, say you go running back heavy and then you get a good wide receiver as your main guy, and Brandon Cooks is your number 2, I think you won't be too highly disappointed as long as he stays healthy. I think Davis Mills showed that he could support a good wide receiver. If he got the starting role and if he continues to have that, I think Davis Mills is going to turn out to be a good quarterback. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's jump in and talk about the Colts. All right, so Colts, they made a big move at quarterback here. They had Carson Wentz last year. He just did not play up to the standards that they expected and had hoped. They paid him a lot of money, and so they moved on from him. They went and picked up what they believe is a more consistent option, someone who has the talent to take them to the playoffs, and that's Matt Ryan. So Matt Ryan came from the Falcons. Falcons have seen a lot of success under Matt Ryan. He hasn't won any Super Bowls, but he got to the Super Bowl with them. And so he's 36 years old, and all that the Colts had to give up for him was a third-round pick. And so I think that was a smart decision. I think there's still some juice left in Matt Ryan, and I believe that he's a big step up for the wide receivers. It's going to benefit, Michael Pittman and some of these other guys that needed more accurate talent to get them down the field. So I think this is going to be, it's not a long-term solution, but it could be what they need in the short term, because they got weapons everywhere else with Pittman and Jonathan Taylor. I think that they can really do some damage if they have a quarterback who makes better decisions. And Matt Ryan could be that guy. They did have a lot of defensive upgrades. They focused on their defense this year in the offseason. And so massive upgrade in the defense. They haven't made any other big moves yet, any splash moves in the offense. And so we'll see what they do in the draft, and then we'll see how they shore up. I think they could probably use some more wide receiver assistance. What they have there is just unproven outside of Michael Pittman. So I think that's probably where they'll focus before the season starts. All right. It's quick and short and simple and sweet, but let's jump into the Jaguars. All right, Jaguars went and acquired 2 wide receivers. They saw that was one of their main holes in the offense, right? They had Marvin Jones and they had some other individuals there, but really not a lot of weapons for Trevor Lawrence, their coveted first overall pick in the 2021 draft. So what they did is they went and got 2 guys. I think these were probably overreaches. And what I mean by that is that they saw a hole that needed to be filled, right? They needed better wide receivers. They looked at the market that was available, their pool of individuals they could choose from, and the superstar options were already taken. They didn't acquire any of those, and they saw the second tier of wide receivers available, and they said, we need something I'm willing to overpay for. And so they went and got Zay Jones on a 3-year deal, $24 million. I haven't been a big fan of Zay Jones. He was really hyped up coming out of the draft, but I don't believe he's really reached the potential that he was expected to reach. I don't think he can do what the Jaguars need. He's always had issues with drops, and I think they could have done better. I think they paid too much for a guy who just isn't going to bring the value that they're hoping for. The next guy, I really love this guy, Christian Kirk. I really do love him. He's been great on the Cardinals, but they gave him a 4-year contract for $72 million. Now, that's a huge contract. Huge contract. That's wide receiver 1 money, right? Elite wide receiver money. And I love the guy. I don't think he's $72 million over 4 years good. I think, again, they're overreaching. They saw, okay, Christian Kirk's available. We can snag him. He's asking for a lot of money. We don't really have any other options. Let's pay him what he's asking. And so they're trying to fill a hole, and they're doing it from behind, right? They're not taking it. They didn't take the lead on getting some of the big names for similar salaries. I think Kirk operated as the number 2 over there with DeAndre Hopkins. We haven't seen him have the opportunity to operate as the number 1, but we have seen people in a similar situation. Like, take Juju Smith-Schuster, for example, right? One of the brightest, hottest burning stars on the planet when he was the number 2 to Antonio Brown. And he dominated on the field. But the second he was given the wide receiver 1 job, he couldn't handle it. And so I see Christian Kirk in that similar vein, where you're going to have a lot of production at number 2 because DeAndre Hopkins is soaking up the double teams and the attention of the defense. So we put him into a number 1 role here. I don't know if that's going to pan out the way the Jaguars are expecting. And so I hope it does. I love Christian Kirk. I hope he can step up. But I guess we'll see. And we'll see if that was a smart decision or not. Another situation that I think they've got themselves into is they know that they need an upgrade at tight end. So they went and picked up Evan Ingram. If you're ever an Evan Ingram holder in any of your leagues, you know the pain that Evan Ingram brings, right? Super talented, super athletic, incredible talent, but hasn't been able to put it together. He just drops the ball all the time. So many drops, so many perfect passes in his hands and dropping the ball. Which, I mean, you're a fantasy owner and you're like, finally, he's going to score that touchdown. It's coming into his hand. He's wide open. And he drops the ball, right? That's kind of been Evan Ingram's career. He's been playing with drops, health issues, and just never really living up to the hype that I think his physical talent could give him. So let's see. Maybe a new, change of scenery here to the Jaguars, to Jacksonville, could, get his career moving in the right direction finally. We've seen flashes of his excellence. We've seen that athleticism come out on occasion, just not on a consistent enough basis to really go all in on this guy. And the Jaguars didn't go all in either. They gave him a 1-year deal. But if he can get it to work with Trevor Lawrence, if he can get that chemistry moving, he has the talent where he could step up into that top 5 tier of tight ends. I would love to see it. I bet on Evan Ingram when he first came into the league, and I have been burned multiple times. So I'm kind of out on him until he proves me wrong. So it doesn't mean he's not going to have a fantasy relevant week here and there. It's just not going to be consistent. And then they did make a move at offensive guard for Brandon Scherf. So their offensive line is giving Trevor Lawrence more protection. A 3-year, $49.5 million contract. He came from Washington, and he's one of the best run and pass blockers in the league. Number 13 overall at his position. I think that was a good move, and I think they need to have more of it. It's one of the biggest issues Trevor Lawrence had last year, why his stats are so low, is he never had any time. He had such a difficult time that and not having weapons. But he was constantly hurried. And when you're hurried, especially in a new situation in the professional level of NFL, talent, you're not going to be able to perform at your best. You're going to constantly be worried about where am I going to get hit from next. And so by shoring up the offensive line here, I think they probably should make another move to get more protection for Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is a good talent, and I hope he can prove himself this coming year. All right, let's jump over to the Texans. All right, so the Titans noticed, hey, we've got a plan, and our plan is to trade away A.J. Brown, right? No one knew until day 2 of the draft, but that's what they did, right? They traded away A.J. Brown, and they believe that they have enough talent on their roster, plus their draft picks, that they can still win. And so what they did is they said, one of the things we're missing is a surefire, some guy with great hands who can get us first downs when they're needed, right? Those 3rd and shorts or the 3rd and mediums or even the 3rd and longs. Who's the guy we turn to, right? You've had lots of examples of these kind of guys, like Larry Fitzgerald and any of these like Devontae Adams, where if it's 3rd down and they need yards or 4th down, you know who they're going to, and that guy's not going to drop the ball. That's Robert Woods. And so Robert Woods has always been super talented really great hands, but this last year he tore his ACL. And with the torn ACL, that's a hard injury to recover from anyway, but he's 30 years old. And so 30 years old, being on the back end of his career as a wide receiver, because wide receivers' jobs are to be fast and to have high levels of agility, right? To be able to turn and change direction incredibly fast. They have to be able to change direction faster than their defender can anticipate, right? Well, you change direction with your knees. And so when you have issues with like an ACL tear, those are difficult for wide receivers to come back from. And so, if they do come back to usually younger in the career, you see them still be able to flourish. Here, I think we're probably the days of putting Robert Woods on your starting fantasy roster in any given week or even on good matchups is probably over. That doesn't mean he's not going to be able to help the team. I think it was a good pickup for the Titans. I think he's going to be able to move the chains when the chains can be moved, but I don't think he's going to be producing 8 to 12 catches every week. I don't think he's going to be a yardage guy. I think he's going to be what we saw, the standard of kind of Emmanuel Sanders outside of his little burst at the beginning of last year. I think we're going to see that kind of production where you're getting 40 to 50 yards a game with the occasional touchdown because he's the guy that they call the play up for when you need the ball caught and you just need to get a few yards. So that's where I see that good trade for the team. All they had to give up was a 6th rounder from 2023. So I think that was a fantastic trade. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that you're going to want to draft. And he's not going to be a guy that you want to start. And then the last major move here from the Titans this offseason was they went and they said, hey, we need a good tight end. So they went and they picked up Austin Hooper, who has had fantasy value in the past. Teams love him. They feed him the ball a lot. I don't think he's an exceptional talent, but he gets the job done. They wouldn't give him a 1-year deal worth $6 million, so not earth-shattering. But with A.J. Brown gone, they don't really have a big body in the end zone for red zone targets, right? Unless you're counting Derrick Henry, who is going to take up most of the short yardage stuff, but almost 7 yards away from the touchdown. The 6 yards away from the touchdown. I think Austin Hooper is going to be kind of play the Gronk role, the Robert Gronkowski role. I'm big, I'm powerful, and I got good hands, and I can catch the ball better than you can. I think that's going to be Austin Hooper's role here with the Titans. It's going to be a big body presence in the red zone and catch the ball. So again, similar to Robert Woods, he's going to have startable value. Not similar to Robert Woods' startable value, but it's similar to the fact of when they need the yards now, they've got a big body with hands. And so I think you can grab Austin Hooper near the end of your drafts, and I think he could have some spike weeks when he hits those 1 to 2 touchdown weeks. So I don't think he's going to be a yardage guy. I could be wrong. He's not terribly old, but I think you're going to have more of those spike weeks when he has multiple touchdowns. And that does it for the Titans. All right, that wraps up the AFC South. Make sure to tune in next time as we cover moves. Next time we're going to cover the movements of the draft, the NFL draft that just took place, how that affects the teams that they're going to, what changes does that make for the people that are on the teams previously or already, and are there any major players that you're going to want to look to put in your first or second round of your redraft leagues, and who do you want to pick up in Dynasty? So next episode is going to be really focused on how you're going to utilize the information from the draft to give you the largest edge, the biggest benefit in your own personal drafts. And then after that episode, we're going to be talking about the AFC East, which is the Bills, the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets. So make sure to tune in. I love you all. Thank you so much for being a part of our team, and can't wait to see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends. DJ Football out.